Good evening, students. Today I will be beginning a new poem with you, and it is called The Walrus and the Carpenter. I have sent you an audio visual of this poem, which has been recited very nicely for you so that you can get the pronunciations of all the words correctly. This poem has been selected from the verses The Walrus and the Carpenter by Lewis Carroll. This isn't the entire part of the poem. We will begin from the first stanza. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all its might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd because it was the middle of the night. If you look at this poem and the lines, each line has a rhyme. If you see the end word of each line is rhyming with another line. Let me read the first stanza again. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd because it was the middle of the night. Now, if you look at this poem and you look at the lines, you see the poem takes us to the early sunrise and to the seashore. It tells us that during this time, the big sea waves were right there when the sun was shining on it. And these big sea waves looked almost smooth and bright because of the sunlight that fell on them. And this was odd because it was the middle of the night. Now, this is quite odd as the time of the day was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil fun. Now, the second stanza. The moon was shining sulkily. Here, the word sulkily is used for a person, but here it has been personified. The moon has been personified. When you give any human attributes to any lifeless object, this is a universal body that you see in the sky, isn't it? You know what a moon is? Okay. So, it has been personified here in the poem and the word sulkily is used. That means the adjective here, sulkily, means quite sadly, remorselessly, and in a bad tempered way. Okay. The moon being a celestial body, it is not a human being, yet it has been given the human attributes of sulking, which is meant to be sad and rather in a bad temper. because she thought the sun had got no business to be there. She was angry. The reason was because the sun was taking her limelight away after the day was done. As the sun's job is to be out during the day, and the job of the moon is to shine by night or reflect the sun's light at night. It is very rude of him, she said. Now, who is saying this? She is the moon, and she is saying that the sun is rather rude. So, here too, the sun also in this is being personified to come and spoil the fun. Now, she was just about to enjoy the limelight that she possessed, that was to be shining brightly in the night sky, and the sun happened to be there, which is quite odd. And so this made the moon very livid and angry. The next stanza. The sea was wet as wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. So, the poet says, the sea was wet as wet could be. Now, we all know that the sea contains water, and anything that touches water gets wet. And now, obviously, the sea will be wet. So, the poet stresses as wet can be. And the sands were dry is dry. Here again, as it is used to tell us how dry it is. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. Now, the poet says that there were no clouds to be seen because at that time it was no longer cloudy and no birds were seen up overhead flying in the sky. There were no birds to fly. At that point of time, as it was night, all the birds go and retreat to their resting place. So there were no birds to fly in the sky. Now you can see the picture, the insect picture. You can see those little oysters at the back. If I will just take it closer, you can see they have little feet. And here's the walrus and the carpenter, looking rather busy. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. See, they are walking close at hand. They're quite close to each other. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. And I thought that it would be rather good if the sand that was there on the shore would be cleared up. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. They were just conceiving in their mind how difficult and precarious the walking on the sand was becoming, because if you have walked on sand, you will realize how the feet just get into the sand and it becomes rather difficult to walk. So they made this statement. "O oysters, come and walk with us," the walrus did beseech. "A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk, along the wincy beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each." Now, here the oysters are being urged by the walrus to come and walk with him and the carpenter. Here, beseech means to beg. You have the words there. And then it says, a pleasant walk, a pleasant talk. Now, he promises them that the walk will be rather pleasant, quite interesting, and also the talk that they will have on the walk will be quite pleasant as well. Brinsy. Brinsy here means the water was rather salty. The beach had salty water, and so the adjective brinsy has been used for the beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each. It says that we cannot do with more than 4. He's saying only 4 of you can come because we cannot give more than these a hand to each other to help them to walk with them or keep pace with them. Okay, children, today I will be doing only this part of the poem. The poetic devices that you can see, I have told you earlier. You can see the rhyme also. There are rhymes there, and you can make out which are the rhymes in the poem. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. Now, enjambment has been seen in these lines. What is an enjambment? In the first stanza, enjambment is when one line does not finish the idea in that particular line, it moves to the next line. If you see this third line, you can see, he did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd because it was the middle of the night. If you can see here, the third line, the first stanza, has moved on with its idea in the next line, and that is called an enjambment. An enjambment is also seen as we go on to the next line. Because it was, and this was odd, comma, because it was the middle of the night. So this line, and this was odd because it was, is moving into the next line. So this here is also an enjambment. Okay, this is a new poetic device that you have learned today. I would like to go on. I have explained to you all the lines of this page, but the poetic devices I have done today is enjambment, and also I have told you about personification, which I know that most of you are quite clear about, which I spoke about in the second stanza when I said the moon was shining sulkily. The word sulkily, human beings feel this emotion, but non-living entities cannot feel it. So this is not a human entity here because it is being personified as a human being. The human attributes are given, that is, here it is morosely, sadly, and in a bad tempered way. So the moon and also the sun has been personified because it says it's very rude of him. The sun has been said to be rude. So here too, in this line, the sun has been personified. We will continue the poetic devices tomorrow of this very page. I would like all of you to send me your queries if there are any with this and next stanza. The sea was wet as wet could be. How wet? As wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. Now we know when we talk of simile, we use like. Okay. He is cunning. He is cunning like a fox. It is as light as a feather. So we use as when we are talking of similes, and we use like as well. So you couldn't not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. Now there's lots of visuals, that is, you can see when you read these lines, you can actually see what you are reading. The image of the sea, the image of the sands come in front of your eyes. This is a poetic device called as imagery that you can see throughout the poem. Okay. Now in these two stanzas, first two lines, the walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. Their sorrow made them weep because they saw so much sand through which they had to walk. And you know the quality of sand? Sand, when you walk on it, is rather difficult than walking on normal ground because your feet sink into the sand. So they were hoping, and they said, if this were only cleared away. So wishful thinking, they say, if this were only cleared away, they said it would be grand. O oyster, come and walk with us. The walrus did beseech. The walrus was begging the oysters to come with them for a walk. And he promised them that the walk would be a pleasant walk, a pleasant talk. Along the Brinsey beach. The adjective used for the beach is Brinsey. Brinsey means salty. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each. Now, if everyone is supposed to come along, they said we cannot take more than 4 because it will be difficult to hold them in the hand. Okay, or to give a lend a helping hand to walk through the sand. So we'll come back with a next video in which we will do a few more stanzas. Today we have completed 5 stanzas. If you have any queries regarding any of these, you may call me. And if you recognize any other poetic devices, write the rhyme scheme and send me. I have taught you rhyme scheme, so I am not talking about rhyme scheme. You have to see the last word in each line of each stanza, and that will tell you the rhyme scheme. No doubt this poem is a rhyming poem, but we have to see the rhyme scheme. So try and do that. That is your homework for today. And also the poetic devices, if any, which you feel I haven't mentioned. So God bless and see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow we will complete these stanzas you see here. Okay, I will go rather slowly because it's a rather long poem, so I will go rather slowly. I hope everyone will see the video and send me queries in Ignited Minds so that if anyone else has a similar query, it will be sorted out all at once. Okay, have a nice day. Bye bye.